Hey everyone, welcome back to the Chessyard. This is Bagga, and I'll be showing you one of the interesting games that I played today. So here my opponent plays the queen's pawn opening by moving the pawn to d4. I respond with c6. He develops the knight on f3. Pretty standard moves for development, taking out your minor pieces in the initial part of the game. Here I moved pawn to d5, trying to strengthen the center. He responds with e3. I develop knight on f6 and he moves c4. Now c4 is a very good option for white here because the idea is if we capture, the bishop gets developed with a tempo plus the center gets weakened up. And that's why computer suggesting the game goes point 0.8 in the favor of white in the initial move. So rather, do not go for the capture, but develop your bishop. That's what I did here. Bishop to f5. He develops his knight on c3 here, standard move. Again, trying to make sure that if he captures, there's a knight protection as well. The queen can hop in and give a check from the a4 as well. Then there can be some serious threats happening in the center, and you don't want that to happen as black. So you will move generally pawn e6, which is the best move as well, giving the extra support to the center pawn so that if he captures, we can take back with the e5 pawn now. Here, white offers the bishop exchange by moving it to d3. Computer is also suggesting that go for the bishop exchange. But as always, I take it back to g6 with the idea that if he captures, we take back with the h pawn and the h file gets open. That would be helpful in attacking later on. Here, he moves b3 and we pin the knight. Pinning is always helpful till how much ever long you can maintain that pin. That is always useful in the game. You try to restrict your opponent's pieces so that they are not helpful in even either attacking or doing some exchange in the center. Here he tries to support the knight rather than removing the pin, with the idea that here, if I capture, he takes back with the bishop. But the idea was never to capture here, so I moved pawn a5 here. Though computer suggesting I could have gone with queen to a5. Let's see how that was useful. If I get the queen here, obviously will not move king to uh, d2 here. The general idea would be to save with the queen. So queen can come on the c2, or can queen come to even d2 here. But in either ways, computer suggesting go for the bishop exchange. He takes back, and now okay, the knight comes in. So now there's a triple attack happening, which can be saved for the time being. But then okay, you can capture the pawn, and things don't look good for white here already. The king hasn't castled. Uh, the bishop is hanging here. If he saves the bishop, there's a double attack here on the knight. So the game can still continue, and we can still continue breaking the white's structure here. If he takes back with the bishop. Okay, computer suggesting that you go for the pawn exchange. So you go a lot of material up here. So that is the right way to play. But of course, these are engine lines which I didn't see. So I moved the pawn to a5 here. He castles. I develop the other knight on d7, and here he gets his rook to c1. Now, generally, when c1 is played, you will see c8 being played, or vice versa from both the sides. So I played the move c8 here. The idea is that the rooks are always aligned to each other. Here, my opponent felt the pressure of this bishop, trying not letting the knight go for some exchange happening in the center. So he tried to kick away the bishop by moving the pawn to a3. Now here, I went for the capture because if I didn't find a good retrieval square, plus computer also suggesting that go for the capture. So suppose if I come back here, the pawn move can push my bishop backwards, uh, and then this bishop will not be of much of a use here. Yes, it's eyeing the king side diagonal, but that can easily be blocked by a move like uh, g3 here. So this stops the diagonal, and the bishop will be useful throughout the game. And so As computer suggesting, I went for the capture. He takes back with the bishop. I take to try to break the queen side here open because the threat was that if this pawn moves forward, my knight and my queen development squares, which is generally b6 here, or maybe even yeah, this b6 is always protected. Then I need to break this further to get my queen in an active square here. So I didn't let him cross, rather I captured. He takes back with the bishop. Here I try to actually take the bishop if he doesn't take my knight. If he does, then my c file gets open, which is always good for me. So suppose he takes with the bishop here, I take back with the pawn. The c file gets opened up, so that just in case the bishop exchange is happening. Oh, this is interesting. If he captures, okay, we also capture. Let him take the queen. If he takes the queen, we take the queen as well. And here, white is winning because he goes a piece up in the exchange. So let's go back to the game where he actually took the bishop backwards on the b2. Now I develop my other knight on f6, giving some space for the queen moves as well. Here he aligns rook on e1. As you can see, white is still in a bit of advantage here, 1.4. It's move number 15. I tried to kick away the bishop. Again, not a very good move. But here he tried to give exchange for the bishop. The idea of pushing this pawn forward was, if the game goes to the end game, I will have my advanced pawns, which will always be helpful. He goes back. I push my pawn forward to b4, and now he closes the pawn chain here by moving pawn to a4. Now there is no exchange going to happen here. The files are closed, a and b files. His bishop is behind the d4, so it's not active for now. The knight can always hop in on the c3, trying to block the bishop. Then he has to go for the capture. We take back with the b pawn, but then our pawns get doubled. So again, a very stable situation here. Nothing to be worried about. Here I moved knight to e4, and he plays knight to e5. Both are trying to make sure that some attack is going on the opponent's side. As computer suggesting that hop in with your knight on the on the c3, which was the part of plan. But then the threat was here the knight is attacking two of the pieces, not just the bishop but the pawn as well. If he captures the pawn with the rook, I will be going a pawn down because then he has the support of the knight now attacking the c6 square. So here I thought of castling in immediately. So I castle. He takes the knight. I take back with the bishop. He tries to push the bishop back. So I take it back on the g6. And here he takes the extra pawn that I was worried about. But I thought of, rather than going for an attack, rather than attacking the knight here with two of my pieces, because even if I attack with couple of pieces here, like moving the queen to uh, b6 here, knight goes back and there's not much of an attack happening. Now there's always two ways of defending and attacking. So if you're being attacked, I prefer going for the counter attack, and that's what I did here. After he captures, I go to g5. Now the idea is the pawn on e3 can be taken. I have two attacking options here. So that was the plan, that you captured my extra pawn. I'll try to do the same here. So he saw that coming. So that's why he moved the pawn to e4 here. And now that gives a very good square for the knight again, which is a knight on f4. Now it's a mate in one if you don't save it. Of course, this is very common to be saved. There are multiple ways to save it. For example, computer suggesting move the pawn, and the attack is still there, but it's a bit weakened attack now. I can go for a check, but that doesn't help anymore. So now I have to make sure my f file gets opened up because he cannot take my knight because of the pin with the queen here. So this way, game can continue further. But here my opponent made a mistake by moving the queen. to d2. His idea was he's trying to pin my knight as well, just in case if I move my knight, he can capture back the queen. The move he missed was a check was coming to the king, and and the queen doesn't have support here on the d2, and that's what was the final move of the game. He resigned after this because I moved knight to h3, which was a check, and he has a couple of squares actually to go with. He can go either ways. Wherever he goes, we are capturing on the queen, and here there is no way that white can probably make a comeback in the game. Yes, there's nothing like no way, but yeah, still looks very tough for him. He could have continued the game by giving a check. Maybe I move back. He takes the knight, the king here, the rook here, and I can probably give a check. He has to move, some refutation happening. I can take back the bishop. So yeah, material wise, there's no harm happening. There's no probably a no brainer that black is ahead and will be winning easily. So yeah, black was 20 points above after capturing the queen. 20 odd, yes. Fifth, yeah, 12 is what computer suggesting. So a good game. One of the lessons that even I got was that when you have an attack on the knight and it's not being defended, try to get in more pieces attacking on the pinned piece. That was one. And the second one, always go for the counter attack. Don't just try to defend your pieces or attack in a very subtle way, but rather go for a good counter attack that can definitely create some pressure on the opponent's mind, and then you can probably win it from there. So I hope you like the video, some lessons to be learned. Please do share your comments and feedback. Would love to watch your games as you send me. All right. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.